Hello friends, it's Kristie Marcotte. It's time to tackle another Christmas collection. This time I'm using Bella Blvd's Fa La La collection. Now they didn't release a 6x6 paper pad this time, so instead I bought one sheet each of the 12x12 paper and also the coordinating ephemera. And I will have links provided in the description box if you are interested in any of the products I use in this video. I decided to keep this set of cards very clean and also flat. So I'm not using any dimensional adhesive at all this time. I will still add those cardstock layers, but all of the cards that I show in this video are easily mailed with just one regular postage stamp. For the first card, I'm using a sketch from OWH. This is number 218. It's one of my favorites. I know you've seen it before if you've watched any of my videos. It's perfect for featuring some fun pattern paper, as you see I'm going to with this card. For the background, I decided to use some textured cardstock. This is just a light yellow cardstock, layering everything on some red cardstock. Instead of adding more cardstock layers, that blue tone-on-tone pattern paper, I used some Love from Lizi peel-off stickers. This is the silver holographic style, and it's so pretty. For the sentiment stamp on this card, I'm using a set by Tonic Studios. This is their Inside Greetings Holiday set. I stamped that using some red ink. I'm just going to cut a fishtail on the left-hand side and then layer this with some of that same red cardstock. Before I adhere the sentiment to the card, I'm going to add a scrap piece of cardstock underneath the left-hand side. That way it'll keep this sentiment nice and level, and it's still not adding any extra dimension. Now for those three tiny circles, you could use bling or brads, but I'm going to use some mini circle Love from Lizi peel-offs. This is the silver mirror color. I'm using the smallest size, and these are nice and flat, so very easy to mail. So there is my finished card, and I actually made a total of 9. For the other 3, I just use a different pattern paper. The nice thing about using 12x12 paper is it's easy to make multiples of the same card. They're still slightly different, but overall the same card. So now moving on to my next set of cards, I'm using a card sketch from Mojo Monday. This is number 550. I have some red paper with white snowfall for the background, and then a Santa paper for that strip going across the front. And this is from the same sheet of 12x12 paper. It's just the front and back side. Instead of using that cardstock layer, I am going to use some red mirror peel-offs. I think this is the medium width. And I didn't put them all the way across the card since I am going to add that circle element. So it's going to cover up that little gap. You can see from the very background cardstock piece, I did cut out that scallop circle, which I'll be using later. I'm going to fill it in using a smaller circle die cut, just so there isn't that little dent on the front of the card. For the sentiment, I'm using that same Tonic Studios stamp set. This is wishing you the merriest Christmas and all the best in the new year. I stamped that in some red ink on a stitched circle die cut and then matted it on that scallop circle die cut. Glue that directly onto the card, and instead of adding the stars, I'm using some snowflake die cuts. So these are from Fawn. And I cut them out using some pretty shimmer cardstock just for a little extra detail. I'm just going to glue these directly onto the card using some Barely Art liquid adhesive. And since that cardstock does have that pearlescent finish, I do have to hold it just a few seconds longer. And then final finishing touch, I'm going to add some of the mini star peel-offs. These are from Love from Lizi. This is the silver mirror style. I just put one star on each side of the sentiment. So there is my finished card, and I made a total of 5. And I was able to get all 5 from one sheet of 12x12 paper. Now moving on to my next set of cards. The card sketch is from MFT. This is number 516. I have some gingham paper for the background, and then this fun present with a bunch of Santas for that rectangle piece. I am bringing in some of the Bella Blvd Besties 6x6 paper. Bought it, I think, last year, and it coordinates with all of their collections. I like that all the patterns have a tone-on-tone design, so I'm using the pink polka dot. It's perfect for this banner that goes across the front of the card. And that way I'll be able to add some ephemera pieces without the card being too busy. So I'm layering these two rectangle, the background, and this pattern paper on some green cardstock. I layered that pink polka dot pattern paper on some pink cardstock that has a pearlescent finish on it. Before I adhere that piece, I will add that scrap piece of cardstock on the left-hand side, just keeping everything level. Put my card front onto a card base. And all of my cardstock layers are generally 1/8 of an inch more than the measurements listed on the card sketch. Now for the banner that's indicated on the sketch, I'm using one of the ephemera pieces that has the fa la la sentiment on it. Then I'll add this sweet pink penguin and also a little pink present. I used some liquid adhesive and glued the two ephemera pieces onto that pink banner. I'm going to add that small piece of cardstock to the top of this sentiment banner. And I'm going to place it higher than what's indicated on the sketch. And finishing touch, I'm going to pull out some more of the mini star peel-offs. Have a lot of the smallest size, so I am trying to use those more than that medium size, since I only have about 7 or 8 of those left. So there is my finished card, and I did end up making a total of 6. Just use some different ephemera pieces. I also used some of the mini heart peel-offs that are made by Love from Lizi. She has a red glitter, and that one worked perfectly for several of the cards. For the banner on all the other cards, I used some red cardstock, and I cut it much shorter than what was indicated on the sketch. So now moving on to my 4th card design. I'm not going to use a card sketch this time. I have this tone-on-tone green tree paper. Really like this, thought it worked nicely for the background. I'm going to layer this on some silver mirror cardstock. And this is just some cheap cardstock I've had on hand, and I'm really trying to finish it up. So I'm going to layer that on some green cardstock. Put my card front onto a card base. And this design is perfect for featuring some ephemera pieces and a sentiment. For this stitched strip that goes across the card, I used some more of the Bella Besties paper, this time in the graph style. The opposite side has the dots. And I have some white shimmer paper, cut out this small stitched rectangle with the rounded corners. And that's where I'm going to add my ephemera pieces. For the sentiment on my card, I'm using a set from Paper Rose. This is their Christmas sentiments. I like all of the skinny sentiments that are featured, and it also has 2 larger Merry Christmas sentiments. I stamped this using some pink ink, and this is wishing you an unbelievably awesome holiday. I cut a fishtail on both ends, and I'm just gluing it in the center of this green strip. But for the ephemera, I'm using 3 different trees. Now 2 of the trees don't have a trunk, but the teal tree does. And I kind of wish I would have trimmed the trunk off of that last tree, but I didn't. So I'm going to glue the green one down first, and then I'll add the pink tree, just layering it on top. And the small teal tree, I'll adhere that in front of the other 2 trees. Then I also have a few other ephemera pieces. There's a pink star, and then I'm not sure if it's supposed to be a pink snowflake, but I'm going to add those to the right hand side above the tree. I'm still just using the liquid adhesive and not adding any extra foam dimension. Now for the finishing touch, I'm going to add some more of the silver stars. I was going to use one of the medium sizes, changed my mind. I'm really going to try to stick with these mini ones. So I have 1 above the sentiment. I'm going to put 2 to the left of that pink tree. Also going to add 1 to the center of the star and 1 to the center of this pink snowflake. So there is my finished card. I did make a total of 4 using this design. For the other 3, I used some gold mirror paper for that background piece. I still used the same sentiment, but for the other 3 cards, I stamped it using some red ink. And I also added the mini heart peel off to a couple of those cards. Now moving on to my final card design. The sketch is from Mojo Monday. This is number 539. And I love this sketch. This is another one I use all the time. I have this sweet snowman paper for the background. I'm adding that strip of pink gingham to the left-hand side. For that thin strip that goes across the card, I'm using some more of this silver mirror cardstock, adding those cardstock layers underneath just to keep it all at the same level. I'm going to layer this piece on some blue cardstock. You can see I have a big scallop circle cut out of the background. I'll just fill in that gap with some scrap cardstock. Put my card front onto a card base. I'll add my stitched circle die cut onto this scallop circle die cut. Just going to use some liquid adhesive. And then before I adhere this to the card, I will add that little scrap of cardstock just on the area where it goes off of the other layers. So I'm trying to make sure to put it correctly. I think I turned myself around a little there. Push that firmly in place, and then I can start adding some of the other elements. Just using that same blue cardstock for the banner on the left-hand side. Use some liquid adhesive, and I am gluing it just a little bit lower. I don't have it going all the way to the top. Using this sweet little pink house. And then pulling out the Paper Rose sentiment set again. I like that it has the sentiment Fa La La. Goes perfectly with the Bella Blvd Fa La La collection. I stamped that in pink. Cut the left-hand side at an angle just for some interest. And I am bringing in one small piece of foam dimension. But it's not adding any extra dimension, it's just the same thickness as all those other layers. So it's a great way to level everything out. I forgot that I even used that tiny scrap of foam dimension until I started recording voiceover and watched me pull it out. Finishing touch, adding some more of the silver mirror stars. And I'm also using a glitter brush by scrapbook.com, just putting it on different elements on that pink house. So there is my finished card. I did make a total of 10. I have 4 with that snowman paper and then 6 with the holly paper. Just use different ephemera pieces, and I used the same sentiment for all of them. Although I put them in different places, it just depended on where the ephemera piece was. Even with all the extra layers on the card, it's still fairly flat, and I won't need any additional postage in order to mail this, since I don't have any of that thick bling. Now here's just a recap of the 34 cards I made using Bella Blvd's Fa La La paper collection. This is such a fun collection. I'm glad I picked up the coordinating ephemera, since look at all of these adorable images. And there's a lot of ephemera pieces included in the pack. I have quite a bit left over. I also have some of the 12 by 12 paper left over. It wasn't my goal to finish it off right now. I like to use a variety of different Christmas paper styles. That way there's something for everyone. I have provided links in the description box if you are interested in any of the products I used in this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.